Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Monday, March 20th, 2023, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. After 16 criminal indictments against East Cleveland, Ohio police officers in the past 7 months, the city is teaming with the Ohio State Highway Patrol to help improve traffic safety. We'll explain how the temporary partnership will affect that predominantly black community. After years of facing investigation after investigation, Donald Trump may finally take a perp walk. Trump could be the first former president to be indicted, as the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is investigating if Trump broke state laws in paying hush money to adult film star Stormy Daniels. We will discuss what the historical moment would mean for future politicians, and also, why is it that Republicans are so angry that a district attorney is doing his job? I thought they cared about law and order. San Francisco NAACP backtracks on opposition to the $5 million reparations payout for Black San Franciscans following backlash and confusion over their official statement. We will show you the updated information that was revealed exclusively on Unfiltered on Friday, and what the organization now says about cash payments. Also, President Joe Biden vowed to advance racial equality. However, the U.S. State Department still lacks diversity. We will speak with the former principal deputy spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State about how the lack of diversity negatively impacts U.S. diplomacy. It's also Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. I'll talk to a neurologist about how Black people experience aggressive progression and more significant disability, and how to spot the signs for early detection to beat the disease. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The mayor of East Cleveland, Ohio, Brandon King, says the Ohio State Highway Patrol is partnering with the city to improve public safety. The announcement comes after 11 city officers were indicted on charges including assault, dereliction of duty, and interfering with civil rights. Mayor King says they have hired new officers and the Highway Patrol will assist in traffic stops only.
The primary function of the Highway Patrol is to ensure Ohio roadways are safe. This collaboration will allow them to perform this primary function right here in the city of East Cleveland. They will assist our officers with traffic safety and will provide a physical presence on our roads. There is no expectation of them responding to 911 calls. East Cleveland Police are fully capable and able to solely manage that function. Let me repeat. East Cleveland Police are capable to solely manage responding to 911 calls. As a side note, even through these turbulent times, thanks to our new chief and the police department, we have managed to bring in new officers, some of whom began working for the city last week.
The mayor says they will reevaluate the need for a highway patrol in 45 days. My panel, Dr. Julian Malvo, Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies, California State University in Los Angeles, Dr. Amakongo Dabinga, Senior Professorial Lecturer, School of International Service, American University, and Rita Shannon, former Georgia State Representative. Glad to have all three of you here. Makongo, I'll start with you. This is interesting here. Again, a third of this police department being charged and indicted. It is still just crazy to think about that. But thank goodness that you have city officials who are demanding a high level of accountability when it comes to their police force.
Absolutely. And this is what happens when the community can actually be involved in the policing of its community. When you're talking about 11 officers, and my concern is how long have they been doing this? How long have they been getting away with with whatever it is that they've been accused of doing. And so when you bring the state troopers in, I mean, to be quite honest, I'm a little bit concerned because I don't really know much about their practices, but I'm for any type of steps that are going to help make our community safer. And one of the bigger challenges that I also have is that whether we're talking about lawsuits or anything that relates to any type of financial compensation from the charges that are being filed against these officers, it's usually the taxpayers that pay for it. And so I'm hoping that we're going to also work to create a system where if there are officers, and we're seeing these videos right now as I'm speaking, if there are officers who are involved in these types of ridiculous behaviors and criminal behaviors and violent behaviors, there need to be real penalties that directly hit their pockets. We know what the unions are going to do. The police unions are always going to come out in support of them. We know that they're heavily backed and funded, but until we can get to a point where, as Johnny Cochran said, hit them in their own pocketbooks and their hearts and minds will follow, we're going to keep seeing instances like this. But I applaud the community there for fighting for justice and fighting for making sure that everybody can really be able to not fear their police. And we have to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And we also have to make sure, this is always a reminder, that we still don't have that George Floyd police reform bill that could help some of these officers who might be indicted, if they get off, to not go and just work somewhere else again or possibly even be rehired there.
Well, I think what you also have here, Renita, is, again, it's accountability. And when it comes to the State Patrol, this is what you do. You step in to help one of your cities.
It is partly about accountability, but overall it is about the fact that we have got police coming in contact with folks too often. Black folks are still 3 to 4 times more likely to be brutalized police across the country. And so what that says to me is it's not about the training. It's not about the lack of staff within the police department. It's not about any of these things that people continue to come up with these solutions for, to say that this is going to get us justice and this is going to resolve the policing issue. We know this because Black folks would not be 3 to 4 times more likely if this were an issue of training or anything else, because they have all those same conditions, the same training and all of that when they go into white neighborhoods. They are just making different decisions. And so I'm really ready for leaders to step up and stop offering circular solutions. And let's talk about real solutions, like reducing the amount of police that we have and reducing police interactions, particularly with Black folks.
Julianne?
Oh, yes, I agree with both of my fellow panelists. And I would go further to say that we've got to take these people's pensions. I mean, I know that's not a popular position, but they have to feel it personally. As Oma Congo says, if a city is basically paying, they're off the, I won't say they're off the hook, the taxpayers are paying for it, and those individuals bear no responsibility. If you are fired because of police brutality, you ought to lose something. And the something you ought to lose ought to be your future financial stability, your pension. Go someplace else, get a job doing something else, but you're incapable of doing that. Right now, there are very few consequences because juries are very reluctant to convict police officers. Very reluctant. We've seen a few in the past couple years, but the number that are indicted and convicted is a fraction of the number, not a fraction, maybe 1%, 2% of the number who actually engage in this kind of rogue behavior. And so unless they basically are penalized personally, if they're penalized personally, they're free to continue to do it. Now, of course, we applaud what's happening in East Cleveland. I think the mayor is on the right track. I think a partnership with the Highway Patrol keeps the Highway Patrol from pulling people over for specious reasons. So I think that's a step in the right direction. But we've seen so many steps in the right direction, and we have not seen the direction shift so that we're actually stopping this nonsense.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. I got to go to a break. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, same as on Facebook, and the share button, also on our app. Don't forget to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do every single day. Check-in money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, and download your copy on Audible. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
Hello, I'm Bishop T.D.J.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, James Simmons had disappeared from his Louisville, Kentucky home on January 26th. The 15-year-old is 6 feet tall, weighs 170 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about James Simmons is urged to call the Shively, Kentucky Police Department at 502-448-6181, 502-448-6181. Well, things got a little froggy at the White House today. Simon Atiba is a correspondent for an African outlet. And let's just say he has been, for almost the last year, going at it with Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, because he feels as if she doesn't call upon him and others. Well, he decided to show out today when the cast of Ted Lasso was there talking about mental health. And boy, he sure got his money worth. If y'all want to see how crazy it got there, check this out.
You can't keep discriminating against some people in the briefing room because you don't like them, you don't like them.
So you have a choice.
No,
you have a choice. You have a choice.
A number of people in the briefing room, and I'm saying that that's not right. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is the United States. This is the White House. No. It's been 7 months. I sent you emails.
The rest of us are here too, pal.
It's been 7 months. You guys have not done anything for me.
If you have grievances, you should bring them to her later.
I have done that. I've done that. All my emails have been ignored.
And the press corps is tired of dealing with this.
It isn't just about you, Simon. I understand that you get questioned all the time and you don't understand what it is to sit here for 8 months and being discriminated against. I understand that you're in the front row and you feel comfortable and you get questions all the time. But there are people in the back who don't get any questions.
Don't make assumptions about what the rest of us do. Mind your manners when you're in here. If you have a problem, you bring it up afterwards. But you are impinging on everybody in here who's only trying to do their job.
Okay, thank you. I'm saying that you shouldn't discriminate against some people because you don't agree with their question. You're offended by your question.
You made your point.
We all heard it. All right. Guys, as you all know, many of you know, this is the White House press briefing room, a historic room, a room that should have decorum, a room where folks should respect their colleagues and respect the guests that are here. And I understand that there's going to be give and take. That's the way the press briefing has gone for decades before me. And I will always, always respect that. But what I will not appreciate is disrespecting your colleagues and disrespecting guests who are here to talk, who were here to talk about an incredibly important issue, which is mental health. And what has just occurred this last 10, 15 minutes is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. So we're either going to continue the briefing or we can just end the briefing right here. No. Okay, well then let's go. Now for my next guest, my colleague John Kirby is joining me here today to talk about President Xi's visit to Moscow.
Oh boy, so this has been going on for quite some time, Julian. Again, Simon Atiba is, like I say, there have been clashes numerous times with her. And he was just, going on and on and on. And hold on, this wasn't the only time. I mean, he kept going. Watch this.
You're here for me. Refer me. No, that's not. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
From across the room. You've been discriminating against me and discriminating against some people in the briefing room. And I'm saying that this is the U.S., this is not China, this is not Russia. This is not Russia.
Okay.
What you are doing, you are making a mockery of the First Amendment.
Decorum, please.
It's been 7 months. You've not called on me. You've done my messages. I'm saying that that's not right. That's not right.
On times, welcome, guys. Welcome to the press briefing room. Okay.
Some people, but this is not right.
Sure, let it go.
Are we ready? Are we going to behave? While many folks...
Decorum,
please. Simon.
All right, so Julian, again, Simon is not happy, and and the thing is, he's gone on Tucker Carlson's show to talk about this, to criticize, complain about Jean-Pierre, because he feels that he doesn't get called upon. And look, there's a bunch of people who don't get called upon from the White House podium.
Exactly. I mean, he's out of line, out of order, out of control, and ought to be banned from the White House, quite frankly, because of that behavior. He made his point once, but he kept going on and on and on and on. And as you say, many people do not get called. She can't call on everybody. Just disrespectful. And there is a level of misogynoir in there. That boy would not be carrying on like that if there was a white man there. He would not be carrying on like that if it was a white woman. He feels free to disrespect a black woman, and for that, if for nothing else, he needs to get up out of there. Now, his colleagues at the press corps, you heard them. They said, sit down, shut up. This isn't fair to the rest of us. And what if everybody who didn't get called jumps up and had a tantrum?
He's with Today News Africa, Renita, and again, he has complained on numerous occasions about not getting called on. And I mean, look, the reality is there are a number of people who go to the White House every single day who, frankly, who don't get called on. So I'm like, and you know what? And this is the other deal. People have asked me as well, man, are you going to get a White House correspondent? No, because frankly, it's a waste of money. Like, literally, it is. You're sitting there and you might get a question. It's just somebody could be reporting on something else. That's just me. I don't see the big deal about having somebody sit there who gets an occasional question. That's just me. But I will say, Simon, you've been an ass.
Right. And the press secretary did a great job of handling this. She was very graceful in handling this. And so kudos to her. But I'll say this, to your point, Roland, people complain, media outlets complain about not being able to ask questions during these White House briefings, no matter which administration is in charge. So when you have Republicans in charge, you have small outlets complaining, small conservative outlets complaining that they don't get to ask questions. And when you have Democrats in charge, you have outlets complaining that they don't get to ask questions. So I think it would be best for one of these administrations to come up with some type of process that would allow some equity amongst who gets to ask questions. But he could not blame this on this press secretary, because this has been the case forever. Everyone's always complaining about not being able to ask questions and about the large news outlets getting to take up all of the time and getting to ask a lot of questions. So he really needs to just stop embarrassing her.
And again, I mean, what you have here is you've got anybody who knows I'm a Congo, the whole game in the White House. I mean, look, mainstream media is going to get called on. You know why? Because they're covering this stuff live. So MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Associated Press, I mean, the usual suspects. I mean, we know that game. Look, everybody watch and understand. We're literally 2 blocks from the White House. And people ask me all the time, I even had somebody say, well, Roland, why don't you go to the daily press briefing? I'm not wasting my damn time. I'm not about to sit there, okay, and knowing full well how that game works. I'm not wasting my time to go be a White House stenographer. Because that's all I'm doing. I can watch that from the crib. I'm just not doing it.
True that. Nah, I understand what you're saying, and it goes exactly to what Renita said. You can go there and completely waste your time going through all of that to have to get in and check in and leave all of this and leave all of that and then not even get called on. And like you said, we can watch the briefings, right online and say what we need to say from where we're at. But back to Simon, he's got to go. Period, bottom line. Whenever you're getting called up by Tucker Carlson to defend your position, that just tells us everything in terms of where you are. As Dr. Malvo said, the misogynoir there, and I really felt like I was watching an episode of Dave Chappelle when Keeping It Real Goes Wrong, because I just felt like she had a moment where she was really going to take it somewhere else, but the composure, I can't believe she kept it, because quite honestly, if I was her, if I wasn't going to cuss him out right then, at the very least, I would have had him escorted out. And I know the optics and all of that, but at some point, you can't keep being belligerent like that. I didn't know about this story until we brought it up, and I thought it was that one instance, but you're talking about 7 months of this. He has no business to be in that space and to disrespect anybody up there, but particularly to disrespect a sister like that. He needs to go, and that network or organization that he works for, send somebody else there who's going to have some basic respect and decorum, because she got enough to deal with from these OANN guys and all of and these other news networks and Fox and people. She has enough to deal with. We can't have that, man. He's got to go. And if I ever see him, I'll show up at a briefing and I just have to check him, because it ain't right, man.
And let me be real clear here, okay? Do I believe there should be a process there? I mean, look, bottom line is this here. If I'm at the White House podium, and yes, there are people who are on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth row, okay? Look, if I got a briefing every single day, I'm going to figure out at least once a month, I'm going to ask some of these folks, allow some of the non-traditional folks a question. But the yelling and screaming and acting the fool, right? I mean, there's a way to do it. But it also, again, you also are respectful of the people who are with you. Look, I've made it perfectly clear, okay? President Biden has not done a single one-on-one interview with Black-owned media. He needs to. I've said that he and Vice President Kamala Harris need to do that. Yes, there was a meeting they had with administration officials, and we were all a part of that. And yes, we ended up doing what I called a drive-by of the Oval Office. It was wonderful, great. We got, and of course, we took a photo. Y'all see the photo right here. This is great, but I made perfectly clear to Erica Lowe and to the White House that was not a sit-down with the President of the United States, nor was it with the Vice President. Asking questions off the record in the Oval Office, that for me was not good enough. This is Black-owned media as well as Black journalists from mainstream. I am clear. They need to be doing one, the President and the Vice President, with Black-owned media. And what I'm not going to do is act a damn fool in the meeting with everybody else. And so I would say, today's behavior really made no sense whatsoever. And again, it was even the case here, again, not everybody pictured or even journalists. And so this is what different people so some of these people in the picture, they're not actual journalists. And so my whole deal is and look, I appreciate the one the Vice President did with HBCU journalism students, but those were students. I'm talking about professionals. So professionals should behave accordingly. That includes Simon Atiba. All right, y'all. Got to go to break. We come back. Donald Trump, could he be doing a perp walk? Critics are saying, oh, my God, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is blowing this thing, just blowing up. This is unnecessary. This is wrong. But wait till I show you all these Republicans. The whining is a trip because they can't handle their patron saint, Donald Trump, being fingerprinted. I can't wait. I call this Christmas in springtime. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
A lot of these corporations or people that are running stuff push black people if they're doing a certain thing. What that does is it creates a butterfly effect of any young kid who, you know, wants to leave any situation they're in, and the only people they see are people that are doing this. So I gotta be a gangster, I gotta shoot, I gotta sell, I gotta do this in order to do it. And it just becomes a cycle. But when someone comes around and is making other, oh, we don't, you know, they don't want to push it or put money into it. So that's definitely something I'm trying to fix too, is just show there's other avenues. You don't got to be a rapper, you don't got to be a ball player, you can be a country singer, you can be an opera singer, you can be a damn whatever, you know? Showing the different avenues, and that is possible, and it's hard for people to realize it's possible until someone does it.
Coming up on the next Black Table, a conversation with Professor Howard W. French on his new book, Born in Blackness, covering 600 years of global African history and helping us understand how the world we know today is a gift from Black people.
There could have been no West without Africa and Africa.
That's on the next Black Table with me, Greg Carr, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Godfrey, the funniest dude on the planet. And you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ow.
Now, you know what? I don't even drink. But if they indict punk-ass Donald Trump and slap some cuffs on him and fingerprint him, you know, Scott Bolden and Robert, I might pour a drink, because it might be party time. So y'all know what's going on. So the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, they are already preparing. Y'all got the video? They setting up barricades all around the court. And Republicans are losing their damn mind. Lord, they are upset. They are in their feelings, mad and just upset, hollering and screaming, saying this is grossly unfair, this is not right, and all this sort of stuff. You should have heard Jim Jordan. He's even sent, y'all, he sent a letter. He sent a letter to Alvin Bragg demanding that he come testify before Congress to know that any federal resources. Listen to this fool on Fox.
We sent this letter to Mr. Bragg saying, we want to talk to you. We want to know what's going on here. We want to see the communications that have taken place between the Federal Justice Department and your district attorney's office there in Manhattan. Because understand, Harris, first they went after President Trump on Russia. Then it was a phone call with Zelensky. Then they wanted his tax returns. Then they go after his business records. Then they go after his children. And now it's some misdemeanor alleged bookkeeping error that they're going to, and this is from the prosecutor who initially didn't want to do this. In fact, he had people resign because he wasn't going to do this because no one else will bring this case. I mean, the DOJ didn't bring the case. The Federal District of New York didn't bring the case. The previous prosecutor in the district there in Manhattan didn't bring the case. Mr. Bragg himself didn't want to bring the case, but then he got pressured, I think, from the left. And I would say this, the one thing that has changed, the one thing that I think has changed his mind is President Trump announced he was going to run for president again. And suddenly here they go. Now they're coming after him for some alleged bookkeeping error. You've got to be kidding me. So we want to know what kind of federal involvement may have taken place here. And we want to know, did this stem from the Mueller special counsel investigation getting to this point as well? We want to talk to Mr. Bragg. We're asking him for the communications he's had with the federal government. We're asking him to come in and testify. We'd like an answer by Thursday of this week.
All right, real quickly, if federal dollars were used then by
I ain't trying to listen to nobody who ignored a subpoena and now you want to demand somebody show the hell up. So Congressman Jim Jordan, go to hell. All right, so now you heard him talk about the alleged. Nobody even knows if Trump gets indicted or why he gets indicted. Want to know? See the same thing? Here's this fool, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, being asked about it, and listen to this dumbass answer.
I've seen rumors swirl. I have not seen any facts yet, and so I don't know what's going to happen. But I do know this: the Manhattan District Attorney is a Soros-funded prosecutor, and so he, like other Soros-funded prosecutors, they weaponize their office to impose a political agenda on society at the expense of the rule of law and public safety. He has downgraded over 50% of the felonies to misdemeanors. He says he doesn't want to even have jail time for the vast, vast majority of crimes. And what we've seen in Manhattan is we've seen the crime rate go up, and we've seen citizens become less safe. And so you're talking about this situation with, and look, I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is that if you have a prosecutor who is ignoring crimes happening every single day in his jurisdiction, and he chooses to go back many, many years ago to try to use something about porn star hush money payments, that's an example of pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing the office. And I think that that's fundamentally wrong.
I'm confused. I thought you said you didn't know any details about the case. So what the hell are you talking about? You had no details. But then also, oh my God, this whole crime going up. In fact, Trump's Vice President Mike Pence tried the same BS on ABC This Week with John Carl. Listen to this fool.
As I'm sure you've seen, Donald Trump is saying that he's going to be indicted on Tuesday. He's calling for people to protest. Now, we don't know if that's true. The Manhattan DA has not said anything about it. But he's calling for people to protest. Is that irresponsible?
Well, first, let me say I'm taken aback at the idea of indicting a former president of the United States at a time when there's a crime wave in New York City. That the fact that the Manhattan DA thinks that indicting President Trump is his top priority, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about the radical left in this country. It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here. And I, for my part, I just feel like it's just not what the American people want to see. We got real challenges in this country today, John. People are facing record inflation, a crisis at our border. We have war in Eastern Europe. The American people are anxious about the future. And here we go again, back into another politically charged prosecution directed at the former president of the United States. And I would just hope for better.
I'm still confused. You don't know no details, but it's politically charged. Oh, it's the radical left. I thought these were law and order people. There's a sign above the Supreme Court that said it's etched in the stone, equal justice under law. Alan Dershowitz was on one of them shows, and he was Newsmax probably. He was complaining. He was saying that that Donald Trump is being treated differently than everybody else. Yes, because his punk ass has not gone to prison yet. And then you hear Pence goes, "Oh, this is indicting a former president." I'm sorry. Does anybody remember Spiro T. Agnew? What? Wasn't he an actual vice president? And his ass got indicted? I guess I'm the one who can read a history book. So please show me anywhere in the Constitution where it says a former president that does some wrong shit can't get indicted. That's literally what these people are saying. Oh, because he's a former president, there's a shield that he gets that nobody else gets. Okay. Scott Bolden, attorney here in D.C., Robert Patillo, Jones as well, attorney as well. That's what's just cracking me up, Scott, this notion that oh, because he's a former president, he's untouchable. That whatever he did, as if there's, statute of limitations doesn't exist, that there's no wrongdoing, that no one should do anything to him, and forget the fact that Letitia James got a guilty verdict about the Trump Organization cheating on their taxes. Forget that other people have been arrested and gone to prison for falsifying documents and lying about income and assets on loan papers. Other people have actually gone to jail. You know what? All those things don't apply to Donald because he's special.
Well, Alvin Bragg is telling you that he's not special, one. Two, there's no law that says a former president can't be indicted for a felony or even a misdemeanor. Spiro Agnew was the former governor of Maryland and was indicted while he was in office, I believe. Just a slight correction.
The Vice President of the United States.
Right, Vice President of the United States. Maryland, it was either the Maryland feds, I think it was Maryland state prosecutor who indicted him. But the bottom line is this, all of this media coverage, you're doing it, just comes from Donald Trump saying, I expect to be arrested on Tuesday. That may or may not be the case. I think the government, Bragg, has waited because the investigation never stopped, notwithstanding the book from the prosecutor who resigned and said, here's the case against Donald Trump. I think he's been over backwards. They're putting defense witnesses into the grand jury, which is unheard of. When Marilyn Mosby was indicted, we found out about the indictment despite our outreach to them the same time the press did, after the indictment was voted by the grand jury. So here they want to get it right. They're putting defense witnesses in, which almost never happens, if you will. They've got a problem with their lead witness, Cohen, who's a convicted felon and has got an axe to grind. And so I think whether he's a progressive prosecutor or not, he's given Donald Trump every consideration. And don't forget about the indictment that's coming from Atlanta, which I think will be even stronger. But we've never had a president like this before, a former president like this, who is engaged in incredible criminal conduct, whether you believe it was a close case or not, whether it was the Eastern Europe shakedown or inciting a riot. All those people, all of them have been either charged, indicted, pled, or serving sentences and stuff. This may be an unusual situation, but the president, Trump, the former president, is an unusual human being, an unusual bad actor, an unusual criminal that has avoided indictment and prosecution, and the chickens may now finally be coming home to roost.
Hey, the thing that gets, I love this one, Robert. Oh, these Soros-funded DAs. Guess what? Y'all can go to hell with that. I mean, bottom line is this here. I thought these are the law and order people. I thought, oh, everybody should have to abide by the law. What they're saying is, oh, no. Y'all get to abide by the law, not our guy.
Well, look, Roland, a couple things. One, when you hear Republicans say the word Soros funded, what they're actually saying is Jew. Let's just take the pretense off of it. They're saying that these Jewish-funded DAs around the country are far-left liberals, and this is the attack that they put out there as a dog whistle to their racist, MAGA, anti-Semitic base. That anytime you hear them say Soros-funded, they are trying to make that connection to the Jewish community and to the Zionist movement and saying that they are far-left liberals. So let's take the Band-Aid off what they're actually saying. Secondarily, take the clip that you played of Jordan. Take the clip you played of Mike Pence. Take the clip that you played of Ron DeSantis. Take the quote from Dershowitz. Did anybody say Trump didn't do it? Just think back to all the people who are criticizing the prosecution, all the people who are saying that, well, this is a far left-wing, Soros-funded witch hunt, etc. Nobody ever answers the fundamental question of, did Donald Trump pay a prostitute, and then did he... No, porn star. No, he was not paying her for her porn star services. He was not paying her to be part of... Well,
no. It wasn't, okay, my understanding, it wasn't operating as a prostitute. They just simply had sex.
Well, he was not paying. He was clearly not paying her for her porn star service.
No. He was paying. Okay, the allegation is that he was paying hush money for her not to reveal that they had an affair.
Okay, so Donald Trump pays a woman who has sex with people for money. Let's just say that.
No. Hold up. I don't know if it was being established anywhere she was a prostitute.
She literally has an escort page up right now.
Well, hold up, but escort don't mean you're a prostitute. I'm just saying. I mean, we ain't throwing stuff out, just saying that. So again,
okay, a woman who's in the profession of having sex with people for money, either on film or off film, was given $130,000 by a then private citizen, and then that money was intended to cover up for her not making statements with regards to the.
And this was a couple days before the election, so this.
And so then, but then this gets to the kind of the meat of the case, which is so then thereafter, Donald Trump used campaign funds to pay this woman for her silence with regards to the sexual activity they did. Then secondarily falsified business documents with relation to that money that was paid, and then tertiarily reported that to the government in a campaign finance violation. So you have the misdemeanor tampering with documents and incorrect business records, but then that's upgraded to a felony when it's in connection with the campaign finance violation, which no one has said President Trump didn't do. Of all the people defending President Trump, they may say, well, it was 7 years ago. They may say, well, this is just a misdemeanor. They may say, well, why are they going after him when there's other stuff going on? No one has just simply said President Trump did not have sex with this woman for money and did not pay her to be quiet. And I think that gets to the fundamentals of the case, which is they feel President Trump should just be allowed to, because of his wealth, because of his power, because of his position, get away with laws that do not apply to other people. And as you say, from the law and order party, that is very rich. And I can't get over the fact that DeSantis and Pence both kind of pushing that idea, because both of them are trying to appeal to right-wing evangelical Christian voters. Mike Pence and DeSantis both want to make the point of reminding people Donald Trump is having sex with unsavory women outside of wedlock, and we may not criticize him for it, but we're going to make sure you remember it.
Hold tight 1 second. Got to go to a break. We're going to pick up more of this. And I don't y'all just mind the holier-than-thou Christian Mike Pence who wouldn't even meet privately with female reporters unless his wife was there. Just gloss over the porn star part. Just gloss over that. I told y'all these folk would trip the so-called party of family values. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, re-entry anxiety. A lot of us are having trouble transitioning in this post-pandemic society and don't even realize it. We are literally stuck between two worlds, in purgatory. How to get out of purgatory and regain your footing and balance.
What emotions they're feeling and being able to label them, because as soon as you label an emotion, it's easier to self-regulate. It's easier to manage that emotion.
The next, A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This is from Robert Acosta's Twitter feed. Them putting the barricades in place today. They getting ready for something in New York. Wonder, could it be the indictment of that punk Donald Trump? All right, y'all, here's the one that I keep cracking up about. And this is the thing, Scott and Robert. Nobody knows what he may get indicted on. Everybody's assuming it's about Stormy Daniels. Remember, the Trump organization was convicted in civil court by the AG's office in New York when it came to the issue of the taxes, frankly, tax evasion. Okay, Trump organization was convicted, found guilty. We don't literally know what this grand jury is looking at. So there are a lot of assumptions people are making. This could be a multi-count indictment. It could cover multiple areas. Before they were looking at his finances as well. And so that's the other thing for all these people who are running with, oh, this is just a small misdemeanor. He's now trying to roll up to a felony. You don't even know what the hell the grand jury is deciding, Scott.
Yeah, and the case has been investigated for 2 or 3 years. And because of that, the state AG sued the Trump organization, and they were found guilty. They were found liable in a civil proceeding. The New York District Attorney's Office then prosecuted not only the CFO, but the organization itself, and both were convicted by this same office. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of cooperation. And remember, the CFO, as part of his plea deal, he had to cooperate. And so regardless of whether this has taken too long or not, Alvin Bragg has been very methodical. That office is not afraid to indict based on his history under Morgenthau. Remember, I'm a former prosecutor from that office. The culture of that office is to lead. And so you're absolutely right about one thing. This could be a multi-count indictment, because even if he lied about the $130,000 and booked it as a legal fee and then reimbursed Cohen about it, that's a misdemeanor. Grand juries aren't into indicting people on misdemeanors, and I doubt they're going to do it in this case. What this leads to is, and I want to give clarification for one thing Robert said, is that if it was in furtherance of a crime, then it becomes a felony, a New York State crime, right? One of the crimes that the media has been talking about is in 2016, they didn't report it, but the $130,000 could have been a campaign contribution because it was related to the campaign and related to her burying it and not saying anything about the payoff, right? So you have to sort through those charges, but there could be more relating to the Trump organization. So you're right about that. And again, Trump is driving this media narrative, right? Alvin Bragg hasn't said anything, and very often they don't have to. These politicians saying, I'm going to call him before the House committee. No, you're not. He doesn't have to show up. There are no federal dollars involved in prosecuting a state crime. The DA's office gets its money from the State House and the New York State, if you will. I mean, it's just all nonsense, if you will. But there's very serious issues here. Look for other felonies if they vote to indict, and also don't look for any major protests, because after January 6th, how he abandoned them, and many of them have been charged and gone to jail, I don't see anybody getting violent, especially in New York, because I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to put those protesters down if they show up and show out. So I wouldn't expect a big turnout for that. He's lost his luster, and I think ultimately we just have to wait and see what Bragg is going to happen, because all of this other stuff is just prognostication.
I'm just, the one I'm laughing at, watching all people like Charlie Kirk and others go, this is election interference. Again, these fools literally act as if the man is above the law, as if no matter what happens, he can do whatever he wants. Actually, Robert, that's how you do illegal shit, when no one ever holds you accountable. And that's been part of the problem. People being afraid to hold this thug accountable.
Well, on that point, Roland, my prediction for what will happen tomorrow, it will be a huge nothing burger. I don't think anything will happen tomorrow. I don't think anybody leaked any information to Donald Trump telling him he would secretly be indicted on Tuesday or arrested on Tuesday. That doesn't even really make a lot of sense when you put it into context of what he's saying. What I do think Donald Trump did was see that his poll numbers were a little bit lagging, his fundraising numbers were lagging, so he decided to dominate the news cycle 24/7 from Saturday through Monday. And by doing so, he's raised millions of dollars through this. He's buried DeSantis' speech this weekend, as well as Nikki Haley's speech this weekend. He's motivated his base. He's gotten reestablished himself as the head of the Republican Party. And we're seeing every other candidate almost bend the knee to Donald Trump, reminding us that he's still in charge of the entire wing of the political apparatus in this country. I don't think a damn thing's going to happen tomorrow. If you're the DA, who in your office exactly is linking information to Donald Trump? He's not a resident of the state of New York anymore.
No, it wasn't. Remember, it wasn't leaking. The DA's office.
Donald Trump said it was leaking.
No. First of all, anything he says is a lie. Remember, the DA's office told his attorneys they were giving him an opportunity to testify before the grand jury. Mm-hmm. That's really how all of this, the ball really got rolling when that was made public.
Exactly. So if a DA is going to give you information, it's going to be, well, you can either come in and testify, or you can come turn yourself in. Those are the things that will be communicated to Donald Trump's counsel. This idea that he will be told when he's indicted, told when he's going to be arrested, doesn't make sense, because that will give him an opportunity to flee the country.
But Robert, we all know he lies. Robert, he lied about lies.
So the point is that I think this entire thing is a bunch of hoopla about nothing to get the MAGA base riled up and to help him fundraise a lot of money. And we're going to be there tomorrow. It's going to be a huge nothing burger coming out of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And also, I think Donald Trump wants to distract from what's happening in Fulton County, where he may really be charged with a RICO violation and could actually end up in handcuffs down here, headed into the Rice Street Jail.
But I do believe that this is important, Scott. Because, and I think what's happening in Georgia is important. Because again, we could go down the line. His whole career started where HUD went after for racial discrimination, settled that whole deal. He's never been held accountable for things that he's done. The problem that I have are these people who suggest that, one, because he's running for president, that's like a shield. That's bullshit. Two, let's remember, the notion that a president cannot be investigated is literally based upon a memo that was written during the Nixon administration. I don't even know why in the hell they still even follow that, because it was written for a thug. It was literally written for a crook, to give protection to the crook. And they still use it as some form of protection. Then you have the people who say, oh, just because he's a former president, meaning it's untouchable. And it's like, oh, then here's the other one. I'm gonna go to the break. I want you to answer this after we come back from the break. This notion that the country, oh my God, the country is going to be harmed. We are going to be hurt. The republic will not be able to stand if a former president is indicted. People literally are indicted every day. Politicians are indicted and they go to jail. We can do a list of them. Members of Congress who've actually, aldermen, governors. What? This is different? We'll break that thing down. You can answer when we come back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Ooh, I can't wait to pour out one for the Donald when his ass go to jail. All right, back in a moment.
Coming up on the next Black Tape, a conversation with Professor Howard W. French on his new book, Born in Blackness, covering 600 years of global African history and helping us understand how the world we know today is a gift from Black people.
There could have been no West without Africa and Africa.
That's on the next Black Table with me, Greg Carr, only on the Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Vivian Green.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, y'all, welcome back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, Scott, I posed a question before we went to the break. Go ahead and answer that.
You know, Donald Trump is an unusual ex-president. The Republic in this country right now, if you look at the polling, are really tired of Donald Trump. He's lost his luster for all the reasons that he's still under investigation for, including January 6th, which was the big one, you know? And so the Republic is going to survive. In fact, the United States and its people survive better if you indict and convict him of wrongdoing. He's gotten away with so much for so long that we've almost become numb to the fact of his bad acts, but not being held accountable. For once in his life, whether it's New York or Atlanta, he's going to be held accountable. I think the country will applaud that. The Republicans and the MAGA group won't applaud it, but the Democrats, the independents, and the moderate Republicans, and people generally will applaud that because the law and the rule of justice works against him. And I just don't think he's perceived by the majority of this country as some major figure. Lastly, in regard to whether you can indict a president when he's in the middle of a campaign, well, one, that's from a memo. That's not even a rule. Even the federal prosecutors don't cite it. When defense counsel cite it, when they represent politicians, they ignore it and say that's not part of the DOJ manual. Here, you've got a New York State prosecutor, doesn't have to follow that. And one last point. We're 2 years away from an election. The fact that he declared doesn't control whether he gets indicted or not, even if you get up to 6 months before the general election, or rather 6 months before the primary. So all of those arguments by the Republicans are really weak and based on political support for him. Ironically, and I'll end on this note, the Democrats, this was Soros funded, if you will. The Democrats want Donald Trump to run against Biden. They want him in the race, one thing. And then DeSantis and Pence, they're supporting him, even though it's against their interest to support him. That's what makes no sense.
Well, that's because pull in Renita Omakongo as well as Julian. That's because Omakongo, these people have no integrity. They have no credibility. They have no values. They have no principles. They have no morals. The bottom line is they're scared to death of this thug. They don't want to call it what it is. And then this whole deal like, oh, it's political. It's this, it's that. You don't even know what the hell it is. And so you're offering a defense of the thug and nothing has even been decided. And so it's like he could get away with whatever he wants and we're going to defend it. That's literally what they're saying, Omakongo.
Absolutely. And when they want to call this political, I mean, they got a whole committee that's been set up just to go after Hunter Biden. And can we recall what happened with Hillary Clinton and Benghazi? I mean, every single thing that they've done has been political. And hey, these are politicians. So this argument that it's political, it has no merit whatsoever. And so when you're talking about these guys who are just sycophants at the highest level, not only are they being sycophants and scared of Donald Trump, but the hypocrisy is also evident and glaring. Because what we're also seeing, what Mike Pence said later in that interview, he also brought up, whether it's violence at the Capitol during what they would call the riot, then they always throw in Roland, or the violence of 2020, we should always prosecute people as if it's the same issue, right? As if this false equivalence, they always run on that because they have nothing else. And furthermore, when it comes to Pence, we got to understand that the cowardice is so strong that he has no other ability than to play both sides of the fence. This man has no strength whatsoever. We're talking about Kevin McCarthy as well. So even when it comes down to Trump, as it was said earlier, he doesn't have to be arrested. He can turn himself in. Everybody's running off a story that he created because he knows that at the end of the day, it's going to rile his base up. But as it was said earlier, it's not going to rile them enough to come up to New York. That courthouse isn't as wide open and is a little bit better protected as it relates to entry points and everything. And Eric Adams is not going to be having that as well. So really, at the end of the day, the last thing that we're also seeing as it relates to the internet chatter is that you even have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kevin McCarthy saying, yeah, it's probably not the best thing to show up right now because they want to focus on the political narrative of the witch hunt than actually look at the potential of possible violence. And in the spaces where the people he told to stand back and stand by, they're just going to stand back on this one. They're going to sit this one out, and it's really going to show the nation how much energy and emphasis and influence Trump does not have over people outside of the Republican politicians.
I'm just laughing, Renita, at these people who literally will try to explain away everything this fool does.
Absolutely. And so, number one, if I'm Alvin Bragg, I wouldn't even show up. He's not being accused. And when I say show up, I mean show up before Congress to Jim Jordan's request and the House Judiciary's request. Because number one, he's not being accused of any crime. So it's not like they are subpoenaing him to come in. So that's number one. Number two, what they're trying to do from Jim Jordan to Mike Pence to DeSantis feels a lot like Jim Crow tactics. And the reason why I say that is because this black man has been duly elected to be the DA. And here they are second guessing and saying, let me come into Congress so I can check your homework to determine whether or not this indictment is legitimate. He's the one who's duly elected to decide what crimes to prosecute, because by the way, that's what DAs do. And so if that area who elected him is fine with what he is doing, then that is his right to do. And so they need to just completely get out of his business, because it harkens back to a time of Jim Crow where basically black people's power is not legitimate, and their authority is regularly challenged by other white men who really just don't want to see any white men being held accountable. And last but not least, if Trump is being indicted on this issue with Stormy Daniels and the $130,000, that is very serious. Can I tell you, I don't know what the campaign finance laws look like at the federal level, but at the state level where I'm at, when you misuse campaign funds for anything that's not a legitimate campaign expense, which paying somebody hush money is not a legitimate campaign expense, that is a felony. And you can Google right here in Georgia and see where we have had older legislators go to jail for using campaign funds to pay for landscaping at their house, and that was not to the tune of $130,000. So if that is what he's being indicted on, that is a very serious offense, and he should be held accountable just like anybody else.
Julian, what is amazing to me again are these so-called law and order people who, it's a misdemeanor. He should be focused on these other crimes. He got a big ass staff. They can focus on more than one thing at one time.
Well, come on. You know, Roland, the whole thing is hilarious. This is Trump's obfuscation. He wants people to pay attention to him. He probably isn't going to get indicted right away. And as someone else has said, I think Renita, when he gets to Georgia, or no, Scott, when he gets to Georgia, Georgia gets finished with him, he's not going to have to put out any wolf tickets. But the fact is that he broke the law. You do the crime, you do the time, period, end of conversation. He's trying to, as many have said, take the attention away from DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and all those other wannabe presidents and keep it focused on himself. And he's masterful at doing that, but are the American people falling for it? I don't think, again, I agree with Obakongo, I agree with everyone. I don't think that these fools these Boogaloo boys or whatever they call themselves are going to show up in New York City. As you said, Eric Adams isn't having it. No one else is having it. But what he's doing is stirring up dissent. So let's just let the process play out, and let's just ignore this stupid man who basically has ruined the Republican Party. And Democrats are not thinking about Donald Trump. Yeah, we want it. If he runs, he will lose. If he runs, he will lose. He will want to do something else with himself, like maybe get a massage at Mar-a-Lago.
Look, I'm just watching this whole deal, and what it's exposing, Scott, it's exposing the hypocrites. And that's what it is. But the one that still gets me is this notion that, oh, if you do this, it's gonna tear the country apart. The man said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and my supporters will still vote for me. Hello?
Well, he's torn the country apart already, and we're going to find out whether he can shoot somebody on New York Avenue and get away with it. If he pays somebody $130,000 and misbooks it as a legal fee doing a presidential campaign for a campaign-related issue, then you can get indicted on that as well. I'm not sure the state can indict you on that since we're talking about federal funds, but we'll see. You know, some of the other charges that have been thrown around, I can see would be a conspiracy, racketeering maybe, a criminal enterprise, affirmative acts on his part. That's what the Trump organization is. And if Bragg really has 3 years of investigation behind him, he can really hammer away at that, because that takes a lot of time and resources. But the country will be fine. The country will applaud him being indicted. And let me tell you what happens to a defendant when you get indicted, right? You do the perp walk, but when you go behind those doors, right, the police are going to take the cuffs off. You're going to be fingerprinted. You're going to get a mug shot. You're going to be advised of your charges, and then they're going to walk you through the jail to the courthouse, bring you in, call the case, and you're going to hear the charges against you, and you're going to have to plead not guilty, and then you set bail, which they probably will in this case, but if they don't, you get stepped back, as we say, and if they do, then you have to walk out the front of the courthouse as someone has been arrested and charged with criminal felonies. Psychologically to his supporters and psychologically to him and his family will have a profound impact on his mental and psychological well-being and how he is going to respond to this. Even Donald Trump is not above or beyond that impact with that process.
And then, of course, Julian, you've got these folks like Franklin Graham. Look at this crap he posted. We need to pray for our country and where it is headed. The left in Washington and across the country just can't get their fill of attacking Donald Trump. They are so paranoid of him. The onslaught against him is continual. There's no question the media and the left manipulated the last election, and they are scared to death of Donald Trump's possible return. So night after night, the media runs negative stories about former President Trump. Now they're talking about the possibility of arresting him and the hopes that this would prevent him from running for president again. This would be a huge mistake. The charges against him are definitely politically motivated. I would like to ask Christians across this country to pray specifically for former President Donald Trump, that God's hand will be upon him, protect him, and direct him in every step he takes, and that God's will be done. We need to work together to strengthen this nation, not divide and destroy it. You know what, since I'm here. Hey, Franklin. Hey, no, go back. Hey, Franklin. Let's see here. Hey, Franklin. Were you asking for God's hand to lay on him when he was cheating on his wife with porn star Stormy Daniels? I mean, since we got a little time, Julian, you know, hold on, let's see. Did you rebuke him. Oh, you know what? Since he's back on Twitter, real Donald Trump, when he lied constantly about paying her. You, Franklin, since I got the time, you, Franklin, are a fake Christian. Okay, go ahead, Julian. I'm sorry, I'm done with that tweet.
What I love is the way these people try to politicize God. So he's asking all Christians to pray for the devil. It's literally what he's doing. He's saying, we know this devil has...
Oh, Julian, that's a good one. Hey, Franklin. Julian. Hold on, what's Julian's, hold on.
Dr. J last word.
Dr. J last, just said on Roland Martin that real Christians do not pray for the devil. Let me just add, you are an imp for real Donald. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, this is, to me, it's hilarious.
You ain't gonna get that on CNN or MSNBC. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But it's truly, truly hilarious that Franklin Graham would basically announce that he is doing deals with the devil, because his relationship to Donald Trump is one that we have to question. Like you said, where was Franklin Graham when he was cheating on his wife? Where was he when he was cheating on his taxes? Where was he when he was inciting people to riot at the Capitol? So these phony Christians, these pseudo-Christians, they hide behind God when they want to do dirt. And there ain't no God in Donald Trump. There might be, never mind. What we need to pray for is justice. And if we're praying for justice, that means, what would it be, 5 to 10? I guess A. Scott knows what the penalty for all this is. 5 to 10, 10 to 20. I don't know, but he does. And this other stuff of attacking prosecutors and attacking, as Renita said, this black man who's just doing his job. But these folks, in the name of woke, in the name of Christianity, are using these terms, in the name of left, using these terms to attack black people. We should not be fooled, and we cannot get it twisted.
Oh, absolutely. And so somebody in the chat room said that I'm the king of petty. Oh, yes, very. I'll be very petty, very petty. Okay, Scott, Robert, I appreciate y'all joining us. Again, I can't wait to see the mugshot.
Well, Roland, real quick, did Franklin Graham say that Donald Trump didn't do what he's accused of? Because I still haven't heard any Republicans say that anything that he didn't do it.
No one has said. You know what? Hold up, Robert, that's a good one. Hey, Franklin. Hey, Franklin. Go back to my iPad. Hey, Franklin.
Oh, God.
Robert Patillo just asked on Roland Martin Unfiltered, are you saying, let me tag Donald, real Donald Trump didn't do it? Sounds like he did. Shall we ask Stormy? Oh, yep, I'm going to tag her. Or should we ask Stormy? Why no prayers for her? Franklin? Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, so the point is that these people need to understand that when you're getting all worked up about Donald Trump potentially being arrested or indicted, no one is saying that he's not guilty of the crimes he's accused of. The reason these people are upset is because they know that he's guilty. Mike Pence doesn't deny he's guilty. DeSantis doesn't deny he's guilty. Jim Jordan doesn't deny he's guilty. Marjorie Taylor Greene, on down the line. So they're not saying that this man is being prosecuted for a crime he didn't do. They're just saying, look, yes, he may have bought some coochie, but it doesn't matter because he's the president. And if they're going to have that standard, then okay, fine, let's have that across the board. Let's decriminalize sex work. I think many progressives would like that. Let's say misdemeanor offenses don't require jail time. I think most progressive prosecutors would say that. Let's just hold everyone to the standard you want to hold Donald Trump to instead of having Donald Trump be the exception to the rule.
I agree. And I'm just, you know what? I'm over here right now. I'm on Twitter right now. So I'm trying to figure out what is this mugshot going to look like? What do you think? Think that's going to be it right there? Think that's going to be it right there? Think that's going to be the mugshot? So Scott, how does that work? Does he have to take his tie off? You know, the long ass red tie he's always wearing. So how does that work?
He'll have to take his tie off and his shoestrings if he's got them, even if he's got hard shoes on. And they'll take a photograph of him against the backdrop like everybody else. So you can't say that's what his photograph or mugshot will look like. But as Robert says, for trying to buy the coochie, I guess that's
he's gonna have
language.
He got to hold the numbers plate, right?
Yes, he does. He'll be a rusty number such and such.
Well, I myself am going to have a petty party when that happens. And so trust me, we will be doing a dance right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered when that happens. So I can't wait for that perp walk. I mean, hey.
You're going to get sued. You're going to get sued.
Why?
You are. For what you just wrote and for you talking about these Christians like this, you're going to get sued. Just call me, okay? Just call Robert, call me.
Why? Because I called them fake Christians?
Oh, gosh.
Because I said Franklin Graham is a hypocrite?
I'm going to respond and say, pray for Roland.
Am I saying that because Franklin Graham is an imp for evil? Because Franklin Graham is doing the dancing for Lucifer?
Oh, God, it gets worse.
No, that's all I'm saying. I mean,
it's a full defense, but you still got to prove it.
What?
So we're clear.
Well, when you sit here and call yourself a so-called pastor, and the only reason you have any integrity whatsoever or any credibility is really because of your daddy and not you.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. I just think.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, look. I mean, I don't think Franklin want them depositions, do we?
Right.
All I'm saying. All right, let me go to a break. Scott, Robert, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, where, trust me, Franklin Graham will not be rolling up in here because he can't handle his heat. I still ain't messing with him when he questioned the Christianity of President Obama. Oh, you think I forgot, huh? No, Franklin, I told you, I'm King Petty. I don't forget nothing. Nothing. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Bill Duke.
This is Diala Riddle.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, y'all, so remember when I interviewed the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, we talked about being black and being a diplomat, and she said how critically that is important. Well, the former deputy spokesperson for the State Department, Jelena Porter, she's like, you know what, the State Department's got some issues. Her piece was called "The State Department's Lack of Diversity is Bad for U.S. Diplomacy." She said the Biden administration needs to do better to promote a multicultural diplomatic corps. She joins me now to talk about this. Okay, so when you say needs to do better to promote the multicultural corps, first of all, for people who don't know, what do the numbers look like in terms of black diplomats or people of color who are diplomats?
Well, for one, thank you for having me on. It's been a year since I've been here, and now I just have a little bit more freedom being a private citizen. It feels good. But when you look at the data right now and you look that they've done for the senior foreign service, it's still largely white and still largely male. So when it comes to African Americans who are diplomats, it's about 4%.
So we're talking about 2/3 of the world, people of color, and yet those who represent the United States abroad, mostly white folks.
Mostly white folks. It's still, I mean, I think you read the article. So I referenced pale, male, and Yale, which is something that Secretary Madeleine Albright has coined. And lots of people, we've had former Congresswoman, now Mayor Karen Bass, she's talked about it. The U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, has talked about it. CIA Director Bill Burns has talked about it. Obviously, I've talked about it. So this is something that's not new, but it's something that needs to be solved right away. And when President Biden became president, one of his immediate priorities was restoring America's stance on the global stage and also racial equality. Mm-hmm. So you think those two goes hand in hand here. And as I mentioned in my article, the Secretary of State was quoted in a Wall Street Journal piece saying, hey, we take this seriously, but I said we weren't going to solve this problem overnight. So it's something that, again, that we've made some steps. They've made new, they've appointed new positions. They have a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, but a lot more work needs to be done.
Okay, but you've had two African Americans sitting in that position, Secretary of State, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice. Did things improve with them?
Well, I can't speak to what things were like when they were there. I can only speak to when I was there. And again, when you look at, if you kind of look at the ambassadors, how many black ambassadors, again, were at the highest ranks. It was President Obama had the most, and right before him, President Bush. And of course, right before that, President Clinton. So they all had the highest similar numbers. But again, you also have to look at the workforce holistically. We have more than just ambassadors who are at consulates and posts all around the world. We have people right here in Washington. We have people in posts, domestically too, who work on visa and passport issues. If you look at mid-level and entry-level, you look at contractors, you look at people like me who are presidential appointees, the numbers are soar. And then you also think about what keeps those numbers soar, right? The problems with retention and recruitment. And so it's hard to recruit and retain people of color when they are not included in the foreign policy making process, or even when they do have a seat at the table and their ideas, their counsel is flat out ignored.
And the point there, we talk about African Americans being diplomats, it's not just those who are ambassadors, but also the people who don't realize these are the people who are representing the country abroad when they are corresponding with other ambassadors, with presidents of countries. I mean that's the key. And even when you look at a lot of these black countries, a lot of these African nations, you don't have black folks who are representing the country there.
Right.
Numbers are really bad. All right, I'm going to go to a break. We come back, we'll talk more about it with our panel as well. Because one of the things I wonder, what is their outreach? Is there an actual outreach plan? How are they cultivating? How are they bringing people in? Or is it one of those things like, well, we'll just hope it gets better, and then something's going to magically happen? So hold tight 1 second. We'll pick that up when we come back. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Of course, you can also assist us. Your dollars are important. Joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Check and money orders, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. And don't forget, we're now on Amazon platform, Amazon News. So when you go to Amazon Fire, just click Amazon News and you can watch the 24-hour streaming channel of the Black Star Network. We'll be back in a moment.
A lot of these corporations or people that are running stuff push black people if they're doing a certain thing. What that does is it creates a butterfly effect of any young kid who, wants to leave any situation they're in, and the only people they see are people that are doing this. So I gotta be a gangster, I gotta shoot, I gotta sell, I gotta do this in order to do it. And it just becomes a cycle. But when someone comes around and is making we don't, they don't want to push it or put money into it. So that's definitely something I'm trying to fix too, is just show there's other avenues. You don't gotta be a rapper, you don't gotta be a ball player, you can be a country singer, you can be an opera singer, you can be a damn whatever, showing the different avenues. And that is possible, and it's hard for people to realize it's possible until someone does it.
Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Hey, Black, I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, so Jelena, so is there a recruiting process? Are they tracking anything? I mean, are they, look, there are individuals out there who have worked in the public sector or corporate America, maybe who are looking for a career shift or whatever. Anything like that happening?
So they're definitely doing some recruiting, and in fact, they're doing it with HBCUs. So for instance, while I was there, I participated in what they call the HBCU Foreign Policy Conference, and we had Vice President Harris come and speak as well. We've had other people speak, and then they also have what they call diplomats in residence. So these are people who are diplomats who are stationed at different universities or at a consortium of universities who help to recruit the next generation of talent. As far as data, I can't really speak to that. I would hope that they keep data on who and how they're recruiting, but they do have, at least since I've been there, they've been recruiting at HBCUs and MSIs.
Any feedback from your former State Department people after you wrote your piece?
I've had overwhelmingly positive feedback. It's also been very eye-opening for me. I've had so many people contact me individually, or even just when I sent it on LinkedIn, people sharing their stories about them either suffering in silence or thanking me for being a voice for, I quote unquote, the voiceless, and really just shining a light on things that need to change. And so it's been nice, but it's also been, again, it's been really overwhelming to hear from so many people from all walks of life, people who are currently there and people who have been there.
All right, questions from our panel. Let's see here. We'll start first with Julian.
First of all, thank you for your piece. It was a really great piece, and I think it's really important. I'd like you to basically walk through, for the audience, walk through how one becomes a Foreign Service officer, how one can become a diplomat. Years ago, longer than I care to remember, I took the Foreign Service exam and passed, but I didn't follow up because a bunch of things happened. But in the room that I took it, there were like 2 Black people out of 100 people. And I took it kind of as a lark. Somebody bet me that I couldn't pass it, so of course I took it. But the point is that I didn't know about it. I went to MIT. I didn't know about it. How much outreach? No, first of all, walk through how one goes from taking that exam to becoming a diplomat or a Foreign Service officer. But secondly, then, how much outreach do you think there should be?
Well, thank you for the question. Let me just answer this with a caveat that I was a presidential appointee. So I didn't actually take the Foreign Service Officer test, but that's the first step that you do need to take to becoming a Foreign Service Officer. There are also different mechanisms, such as applying for the Rangel Fellows Program or the Pickering Program, which are designed for candidates of color who then get their grad school paid for, and they come in with a cohort of people, which is really nice. They have a support system to then go on into the Foreign Service, and I believe they have about a 5-year obligation to fulfill after that. And then you have people like me who are presidential appointees. As far as I know now, the Foreign Service Officer test, they have made some changes to make it a lot more equitable. Again, I haven't taken it to become a Foreign Service Officer or at least either join the civil service as well, but there are different mechanisms to becoming an employee with the State Department. As far as the recruitment is concerned, again, the same thing with me. I think I only found out about the Foreign Service when I was a Peace Corps volunteer doing the work in a village in Cambodia. That's when I met Foreign Service officers for the first time and understood that this could be a career for me. And I went to undergrad right here at Howard, and there wasn't much recruitment while I was there. And so they've been recruiting more at HBCUs since then. Of course, this was a long time ago, but I think those things can always be ramped up.
All right, let's see. Omakongo.
This is something, Ms. Porter, that's very near and dear to my heart. Undergrad, Georgetown, I was School of Foreign Service, a master's in School of Law and Diplomacy, and now even as I teach at American University, School of International Service, and I'm continually seeing that there are not enough of us represented at these levels. And so I was so happy to see this story. And as someone who's done work with the State Department overseas in some of these countries working with affected youth, the question that I have for you is something that I've noticed in these countries. I want to know, what is your perspective on how people in these countries perceive the State Department when the diversity is lacking? Here we are talking about equality and everything we promote in this country, but they're seeing the same faces overseas. What does that do to the local populations on the ground in the countries that we are in?
Well, I would say the perception certainly doesn't match the promotion. So what I mean by that is that, again, when you send our diplomats to all these countries abroad, and we talk about that we are diverse and we are inclusive, but what they see on the ground is the exact antithesis. We see something that's wrong. And what we've actually experienced is we've had our adversaries, we've had China, we've had Iran, we've had other countries call out the hypocrisy of it all. So I think to even improve our credibility. We talk about being the leader on the world stage. We talk about putting human rights at the center of foreign policy. But if we really want to up our standings and our credibility, we need to walk the talk.
Let's go, Rita, your question.
Jelena, thank you so much for your piece. Your piece was great. I particularly like the part where you talked about Black elected officials not being involved in anything relating to foreign policy and the process, because that actually happens on many different levels of government for many different processes, where you see that positions, elected positions that are typically involved in certain processes, those when they're held by Black people, those people are not being called into these processes. So I really appreciate you calling that out, because that does go to the legitimacy of Black people being duly elected and holding office. My question is, have there been any appointments in the last 2 years for diplomats? Because I know we had a situation here in Georgia. We have a Black state rep who retired after 45 years in the House, got appointed to be a diplomat, and still is not in position to this day. So what is going on right now with diplomats being put in place, at least as it pertains to the last 2 years? Is it still at a standstill?
Well, I'd say across the board, and this is not only for African Americans who are awaiting their confirmation process. We've, again, since I've been there and even coming out, we have seen a standstill from the Senate with confirming our ambassadors or even confirming some of our officials who are in the State Department now. And again, that alone has hindered our progress in foreign policy making process, but particularly for African Americans who, again, the numbers are very small. And it's close to home for me when it comes to interacting not only with African American lawmakers. I used to work for the former leader of the Congressional Black Caucus. And again, coming from that era and having both the legislative affairs background and the foreign policy background, I see how important that is. And so that's something that I advocated and I'll continue to advocate for now, as well as working with African American media. I think that's something that I spoke to in my piece, and I just understand how important it is when we tell our stories and when we build bridges diplomatically, how important that is to reach out to different groups, especially diaspora groups as well.
All right, so my final question for you is, so let's say there's somebody out there and they're like, that's a lot of white folks working over there. I don't necessarily think I want to go work in that environment because there's not enough diversity. What would you say to them?
I would say to them that that's accurate right now, but we do need good people. So the work of foreign service, it is hard. Sometimes it's thankless. Sometimes it's very tireless. But we need you. And again, I'm going to pass the torch because I've done my service, again, from the Peace Corps to the Congress to the State Department. But we do really need you. So I would encourage you to, again, build bridges, to meet people who are currently serving, reach out to me. Reach out to people who were former diplomats as well, and decide what you want for your life. And again, whether you do it for a few years or if you do it for the rest of your career, it's something that Americans will thank you for over and over again. Gotcha.
I'm gonna try to think. If I could be ambassador to somewhere, let's see here.
So yeah, you can be appointed.
Oh no, I know. I'm just trying to think.
Where you want to go?
I'm trying to think. If I had to be ambassador somewhere, I'd probably say Bahamas probably be number one.
Okay, I would. For me, now I just got back from Nevis, so now I'd stay there.
Jamaica probably number 2.
Okay.
Yeah. St. Kitts might be number 3.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be somewhere where there's a whole bunch of sun
and beach
and a whole bunch of Black people.
That too.
Yeah.
I agree.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. When we come back, we're gonna talk about MS. And its impact on African Americans. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, re-entry anxiety. A lot of us are having trouble transitioning in this post-pandemic society and don't even realize it. We are literally stuck between two worlds, in purgatory. How to get out of purgatory and regain your footing and balance.
What emotions they're feeling and being able to label them, because as soon as you label an emotion, it's easier to self-regulate. It's easier to manage that emotion.
The next, A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Coming up on the next Black Table, a conversation with Professor Howard W. French on his new book, Born in Blackness, covering 600 years global African history and helping us understand how the world we know today is a gift from Black people.
There could have been no West without Africa and Africa.
That's on the next Black Table with me, Greg Carr, only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Let's talk about multiple sclerosis. This is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, and you may not realize the people who are actually impacted by this. Montel Williams impacted by this here. Also, my man Walter from the OJs. Nearly 1 million people are living with MS in the United States. Researchers thought that MS mainly affected white folks, particularly those of European descent. However, recent studies reveal more black people have the disease than previously thought. The rate among black Americans is consistent with the rate of MS in white Americans. An estimated 226 black people and 238 white people out of every 100,000 have MS, and women are 3 times more likely to get the disease than men. And so let's talk about this here with our guest. And again, as I said, a number of people have been impacted by this, and I'll give you some of those names a little bit later as well. Joining us from Bowie, Maryland, is John Ficklin, retired special assistant to the president for National Security Affairs, and from Atlanta, neurologist Dr. Jacqueline Faulkner Rosenthal. Glad to have both of you here. So, Doc, I'll start with you. So, again, why do people think for the longest that more whites were impacted by MS than blacks?
Well, I think it's twofold. One being that Black people, Black women in particular, are the fastest rising group of people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so part of it is that. The other part really is just being more on top of diagnosing people. I think that a lot of Black Americans were not diagnosed as early as they otherwise could have been due to a lot of different factors, not being seen quickly enough, not being diagnosed quickly enough, misdiagnosis. And so I don't think there's just one answer. But certainly the numbers are rising. We're certainly seeing Black women in particular getting diagnosed a lot more frequently now.
John, again, you've had folks like Richard Pryor. You have Tamara Dobson, the actress who played Cleopatra Jones. Again, as I said, my good buddy Walt Williams with the OJs. And so you see Montel Williams. And so folks, they're like, whoa, man, so I see somebody who's on stage, they're singing and they're moving. So I don't know how they're affected. So for the folks who don't know, what does having MS feel like?
It varies. And so I always tell even my patients, one case of MS is going to be completely different from another case. And we have, fortunately, lots of people with MS who have very minimal symptoms that live completely full lives. There's a misconception that because you have MS, you may lose your ability to walk, when in fact, majority of people continue to walk and don't require a wheelchair. And unfortunately, there are still very severe cases characterized by a lot of disability, but the disease course is so variable and depends on so many things. And fortunately, especially with a lot of the medications that we have available today, it could have a relatively little impact on someone's life in terms of what they are able to accomplish. And then the other side of that is a lot of the symptoms from multiple sclerosis aren't necessarily things that you can outwardly show. There can be things like, fatigue and pain, and that isn't something that someone just looking at you can necessarily pick up on.
John, can you hear me?
I agree with the doctor on that. Most of my symptoms are you would never know that I have MS unless you were one of my skiing buddies 20 years ago when I was an avid skier. I don't ski as aggressively as I used to today because I'm just uncomfortable and not don't have the coordination to do what I used to do, and I do blame that on MS. I went 10 years with symptoms that weren't diagnosed as MS because it just was not on the doctor's radar screen until I was severely handicapped and curled up in a bed and uncomfortable and dropping things and couldn't drive. And finally, after my third visit to a neurologist, I had MRIs of my brain done, and the lesions were found. And I spent a week in the hospital being treated with steroids to stop the flare, to stop that first flare. And that's why I'm doing pretty well. As the doctor said, if you saw me on the street today, you would never imagine that I'm suffering with the disease.
Let's see, questions from our panel. Let's see, I'll start with you, Julian.
Doctor, first of all, thank you for your information. And my brother, thank you for sharing your own symptoms. I really appreciate that. I've had a couple relatives that have had MS, and it really did kind of debilitate them. They were in wheelchairs. What can one do? Is there anything one can do to avoid getting MS if you know that a family member has it? Are you likely to have it as well? And what can one do to perhaps protect themselves from it?
So it's really hard to, look at and say it can be avoided. And I tell people that all the time because it truly is out of your control. And part of the uncertainty there too is we don't truly have the most accurate idea of what causes it. And it's not just one thing. A lot of us know that it's multifactorial. Part of it is a genetic predisposition, but that's not all of it. There's also different environmental exposures. Geography plays a role. And so all of those things interact in a way that leads to the disease. One thing that you can do, especially with any sort of family history of any autoimmune disease, is go to the doctor regularly, make sure vitamin D levels are appropriate. Black individuals in particular tend to have lower levels, and there is some evidence that can be protective. But truthfully speaking, it is something that happens to you, and there's nothing that anyone can do to prevent it from occurring. What is under someone's control is to be aware of what the symptoms are, to be diagnosed in a timely manner. That's the best chance anyone will have for having minimal symptoms.
All right, Amakongo.
Well, I did have one question, Dr. Faulkner, but you said, Dr. Faulkner Rosenthal, but then you said something else just now that triggered a different question. You mentioned something about geography. How does that break down? Are we talking about regions of the country? Are we talking about regions within states, like poorer communities where there's lack of access to certain things? Could you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, you mentioned some things that I wasn't thinking of when I said geography. And so access to care is a huge influencer in terms of how someone, that burden of disease. But when I say geography in the strict sense, I'm really talking about data that says the farther one lives away from the equator, especially earlier on in life, that leads to differences in the likelihood that you may get multiple sclerosis. And so we see that people who tend to live closer to the equator have a lower risk. People that live farther away have a higher risk.
Let's go to Renita.
Being here. Dr. Rosenthal, this question is for you. You mentioned earlier about Black patients being misdiagnosed. Is that because the symptoms for MS within Black people are different than white people, or what is that attributed to?
They're not necessarily different. Now, we do see differences in the presentation in Black MS patients. It tends to be a little more quicker in onset. Symptoms tend to be more severe, a little bit faster progression, faster onset to disability when it occurs. But if anything, that would, lend itself to a more timely diagnosis. I think a lot of misdiagnosis comes from partly, maybe not getting in to be evaluated as quickly for whatever reason that is, or was someone not referred as quickly as they should have been. It can also be due to that misconception we talked about. It is very much an outdated outlook that MS belongs to white women and that men don't get it and that Black people don't get it. And so unfortunately, even though those of us that treat MS all the time know that, there are still a lot of people in the healthcare community that still have that mindset. And unfortunately, that carries out to the entire population. So patients maybe won't necessarily have it on their radar in terms of a potential diagnosis. And so that can lead to a delay as well.
John, you said something that I thought was interesting when you said it took 10 years to diagnose. So you're going to the doctor. What are you saying to the doctors? And you're like, okay, y'all can't figure this out? Because that's part of the deal, communicating with your doctor what's happening with your body if they're missing things.
I had annual physicals just like everybody else. And I would call the doctor and visit the doctor when I was having, tingling and numbness and extreme fatigue. And these symptoms were on and off. They weren't constant. There were times that I was just fine. And then I would go through a very tough period of fatigue and clumsiness and tingling, neuropathy, and that kind of thing. I was tested for Lyme's disease. I was treated for chronic fatigue syndrome. And it wasn't, and this is over a 10-year period. I had multiple very uncomfortable nerve studies. And multiple sclerosis was just not on the radar screen. And I guess I always assumed after I was diagnosed that it was because I was a Black man. And, that fallacy that Black men don't get MS was functioning.
And that right there, Doc, I think is, again, one of the things that if you're still feeling a certain way, you must be persistent in pushing your doctor to say, I need an answer.
100%. I think this isn't unique to MS, but in any aspect of health, it's okay to be a pushy patient, to advocate for yourself, to get the answers you need, to educate yourself on, your symptoms and what the necessary workup would be. With MS in particular, a lot of the time the diagnosis is missed simply because an MRI wasn't done. And that's not to say that an MRI is going to necessarily give the diagnosis. With MS, there's not just one test that we can do that is going to give all the answers, but it's part of what is necessary with any workup when you have certain neurologic symptoms, no matter what they're from, getting the necessary tests completed.
All right, then. All right, if people need more information, where should they go check to get more info about MS?
The National MS Society is an awesome organization. I would highly suggest going there. Multiple Sclerosis Association of America, I Conquer MS. There are a ton of resources out there, a lot of educational resources, a lot of resources about getting the Black community to participate in research as well.
All right, then. We thank you, Doc. John, we appreciate it as well. And I'm sure your skiing buddies are like, man, you still skiing?
I'm trying, but not as aggressively as I used to.
Oh, I got you. I understand. Well, my man Walt Williams with the OJs, he's still trying to play golf, and he's still doing his thing. But I told Walt he don't want no part of this golf game, though. So I told him better keep that OJ singing money. All right, I appreciate both of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let me thank Renita Julian Omakongo as well for being on today's show. Thank you so very much. Folks, I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that thug down Trump. And don't forget, y'all, keep watching and supporting what we do. Download our app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and YouTube people. Why y'all playing around? Y'all should be hitting the like button, okay? Y'all should be hitting the like button like crazy right now. I got to go. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here on the Black Star Network. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! A real revolution. revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.